Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Our show today is A Woman's Prerogative, Part 1. In partnership with E360 TV. I'm Caroline Heward. I'm absolutely thrilled and honoured to be representing Dr. Jacqueline as your host for USA Global TV and Radio's flagship show, A Woman's Prerogative. I'm a TV presenter on this channel, USA Global TV and Radio. I'm also the resident therapist for the channel, and I am known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. A warm welcome to our loyal viewers and our friends at E360 TV. Hello to all of our friends across all our usual platforms, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. Today's topic, I'm so excited about this to hear what our panelist has to share. Our topic is, and it came from the fact that I'm so cold. It's very cold in the UK. So our topic is cold weather comforts, traditional dishes that warm the soul. And it's part 1. We have part 2 at 9 p.m. GMT time and 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I am joined today by our full-time panelist, Reverend LYDIA FOUGERES, all the way from Canada. So let's bring out Reverend LYDIA.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, Caroline.
Hello. Yes, it is good evening here, and you're in daytime, aren't you? Wonderful to have you here, Reverend LYDIA. Please do share with our viewers, especially the ones that are here for the first time, a little bit about what you do and a little bit about how you help your clients.
Well, I'm a reverend to start with, so I actually can perform weddings. I am also a registered nurse. Well, I am retired. And an intuitive healer also. I balance chakras. I do help a lot when it comes to balancing the energy field. What I do is actually, I work from cause to effect. So someone that does not understand their environment, what goes on in their environment, I help them figure it out and accelerate the speed of the molecules around them, because I'm in metaphysics. So what I do is I write about metaphysics. I'm an author of 2 books. A third one is going out very soon. So that is pretty much what I do. And I'm a master in Reiki also. So I do distance healing, and I am there for everyone.
Thank you, Reverend LYDIA. And you do have a tall and interesting biography. When I was looking at your profile, I was thinking how wonderful to be able to do the things that you do. It's absolutely incredible. So for me, I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert, and I help people bust their stress. How do I do that? I use root cause therapy and chakra psychology, how the mind and body connects and what happens to the person physically, emotionally, mentally, behaviorally when there's an imbalance. And the imbalance is the symptom. It's whatever they're complaining about. So if they're complaining about a relationship that's not working, a business partnership, if they're complaining about a physical ache and pain, or a relationship issue such as intimacy, or if they're angry or sad, it's whatever they're complaining about. It's the root cause that I identify, and I work with the blueprint of the person and identify where this pattern first originated and clear the energy lines of that first occurrence, which releases the emotion and it clears so the person feels more peaceful internally, and they get an incredible sleep. And what's more to the point is that the emotion releases and they feel more relaxed, more peaceful and better. And so we do walk around generally with our symptoms, our repeating patterns. And when we're in our repeating patterns, then it's difficult to move forward. And we'll know because we're saying same time, same familiar experience, same feeling, different person, different time. And this is the ever revolving patterns that we experience through our stress. And I help you bust through your stress. You can reach me and follow me on social media, LinkedIn and Facebook. So now, Reverend Lydia, let's get into this meaty subject. I'm quite excited about this because it's very chilly here. And I know that it's cold where you are as well in Canada. I've seen pictures of you in the snow and being very playing in it. I mean, I'm sort of sitting shivering in the cold. So cold weather comforts, traditional dishes that warm the soul. And today I want to share, because I was feeling particularly cold today, I want to share that I reached out and heated up half a can of Stilton and broccoli soup. And I added a bit of paprika and a bit of chili for heat. And I really enjoyed it, and it made me feel warm. And it was something that I don't normally do when I was feeling particularly cold. So that was like a comfort to make me feel warmer. So just in thinking about comfort food in the winter, what comes to mind for you in terms of how you would reach out if you're feeling cold? What's your go-to? Where would you go? Mine's a can of soup as the first thing. You know, a tomato soup is normally, but I felt a little bit brazen and did broccoli and Stilton. So what's your go-to when you're feeling cold and looking for comfort?
Well, we actually eat a lot of split pea soup. And the weirdest thing is that I made it like last week. So I made a lot of split pea soup last week. And I keep a lot during the winter. So it's always there. It's always a comfort. I keep it, to comfort, my family, to make them happy. So I'm a person that does a lot of soup. And I do a lot of really these huge breakfasts. I do not eat them, but I make them. So I like to start the day with a large breakfast. I really love it. And it's really important to start the day with a substantial breakfast. So that is the way I like to start the day when it's cold outside, because today is minus 11 Celsius.
Oh,
So
that's cold. That's
yeah,
really cold.
that is cold, but we are well dressed and we are happy, and it's beautiful outside. Absolutely beautiful outside.
Well, tell me more about your breakfast. What would you normally cook for your family? And because for me, it's a banana. I'm not very big on breakfast, which is not good at all because it doesn't make me warm whatsoever. So what do you do for breakfast?
Well, where I am concerned is blueberries, strawberries, and yogurt. That is my breakfast. But for them, it is eggs, beans. I toast, lots of toast, jam, and I'd add whatever, citrus fruits. So I pretty much add those to their breakfast. Um, Sunflower butter. Actually, people do not know very much about sunflower butter, but it's absolutely delicious. and it's as nutritious as peanut butter. So that is what I do.
Well, that's reminding me of the great British full-on English breakfast, and something that I used to a very long time ago take part in after I'd been on a night out on the partying, and the way to get the carbs back into the body would be to have a full English breakfast. And what you're describing sounds a bit like that. It's bacon, eggs, sausage, eggs, beans, tomato. In the north of the country, it's black pudding. I won't go into that. When I found out what it was, I don't eat it anymore. But it was very much to put the carbohydrate back into the body. And that sounds like with toast and butter. So I can't eat like that anymore. And it was only very occasionally, but many people, to warm up for the winter, will have this big full-on English breakfast. And I know a lot of Americans come to England to sample the English breakfast, which is like a big dinner. But my favorite, my go-to, if I do want to have something like that, is scrambled egg on toast with mushrooms. And that for me it's very comfort warming, and I feel very replenished. So breakfast for me is light, and at the same time, we have a British tradition of bacon, egg, sausage, so the whole shebang. And when I was young, as a child, my mum used to cook porridge. And have you ever heard of porridge?
Oh, yes, we do have porridge. I do not like porridge, but we had porridge every single day.
Well, porridge was just something, it was institutionalized in our family in the winter, that, you know, before we went to school, we would have a bowl of porridge to keep us warm. And that was so institutionalized in terms of the way that I would start the day, that, you know, when you're forced something, you either love it or you hate it. I would have the tiniest bit of porridge and the tiniest bit of milk, but just to say that I'd had it. But I would not touch it now. I don't like it because it was just something that was given to me and I was made to eat. But it did keep me warm, I have to admit. It did warm me up. So porridge is another one. And then there's shredded wheat, where we mixed it up with milk. Have you heard of shredded wheat, Reverend Lydia?
Yes. Well, what I realized is that we eat pretty much like in England, because there's lots of people that came from England in the 17th century. So we eat, like I would say, we eat similar to British citizens. So that is the way we eat. So it's pretty similar.
So just thinking about warm and comforting food for the winter, what's your favorite lunch dish and why do you go to that lunch dish? I mentioned that soup is something that I would go to because breakfast is not a big thing for me. But do you have a traditional in your country, a traditional warm lunch?
Well, we love clam chowder. We do love clam chowder. And all kinds of chowders that have to do with seafood. There is also the traditional, and I do not eat any of it, but the thing is that it's been invented here in Canada. So they call it the poutine, which is not very good when you want to lose weight. It's fries with gravy and cheddar cheese. Um, Canada is well known for the poutine. It's really not healthy, but we have a lot of it. And we eat like club sandwiches, smoked meat. We eat a lot of smoked meat. We really do have good smoked meat and steak. Lots of people eat steak because in the winter you have to eat lots of calories to keep warm. So that is the way it works. You have to keep warm. So if you're working outside, so when you're going outside, you're going to you're using your snowmobile, you have to actually be warm, because it's over the times when people used to bring alcohol to keep themselves warm. Now, if you eat well, you eat a lot, you eat many calories, and you keep yourself warm with that. So, snowshoeing, snowmobile, ice fishing, and lots of calories to keep yourself warm. That is the way it is.
Oh, wow. I love the fact that you do smoked meats. That's really intriguing. That's not a British thing for us. Smoked salmon is quite a luxury here. And I do like the idea of smoked meats. That sounds really inviting. And that's my kind of thing. I would go for that. But it's not in England, it's not really like that. We do things on toast. So we'd have toasted sandwiches for lunch. That the paninis with something in the middle would be a general traditional food, sort of warm sandwiches, or a bacon and egg sandwich in terms of being toasted. And, so our lunches are usually quite light. What you described is quite a heavy type of lunch. So normally in England, we would have much, sandwich or salads if you were being very healthy. And that if you were genuinely at work, you would probably have something like a toasted sandwich to warm you up, or some soup, like a cup of soup. But thinking about dinner time, that's our main our tea time. That's when we would have very big meals. I know that's not the way you should be eating, but we would have things like casseroles and stews with dumplings. Have you heard of stews with dumplings?
Yes, we do have it here also. Actually, stews are actually delicious. I love them. Actually, we had a deer stew this week,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was yes. Oh, well, we went hunting. We
Dear.
went hunting, so we had a deer stew, and
Oh,
it was
wow.
delicious. That was the first for me. I had never had deer stew, but it was delicious, and actually, it was something new to me, and it was something that I did not even know how to do, but it was introduced to me, and I think I have adopted the tradition. That is the way it is. But in the evening here, actually, we do not eat as much as at lunch. At lunch, we eat a little more and less in the evening, because it's a little different here, because we go to bed early, we wake up very early, and we do not eat as much. I was raised that at dinner time it was soup, because we would go to bed and not with a heavy stomach. That was the way I was raised. So we would go to bed, because they would say, my grandmother used to say, if you eat after 5 o'clock, eat light. That is what my grandmother used to say. She used to say, you will sleep better.
That's so true. And yet in England, we particularly have our biggest meal in the evening and a lighter snack in the afternoon. But it's so much healthier to have the main meal, the bigger meal in the afternoon. I think it's just the fact that we stay up later, which is probably why we have our main meal, and we sort of eat on the run sandwiches or even baked potato, which I was quite partial to when I was in corporate, to warm me up while I kept going. But looking at the types of foods that you will eat to keep warm, do you think it's just about keeping warm, or do you have a view that there is nourishment, vitamins, and not just about warming, so junk food, for instance, it's actually very nourishing to eat some of these winter warmers?
I think it's nourishing, but at the same time, it's comforting, because winter is a difficult time. So it's really comforting. And it has to do with tradition also. We eat according to the tradition. And the way we eat, actually, it's the way we have been raised. So according to our background, we eat differently. And I always say, whatever works for you is fine. So I do think everything is right. Whether your main meal is at lunchtime or at dinner time, I think whatever works is good.
On saying that, Reverend Lydia, I can see that eating your main meal in the afternoon will be so much healthier for you than having it at sort of 5, 6, 7, 9, at night and then sleeping on it. It's a much healthier way to live. So I really take that on board in terms of the fact that the Canadians eat that way. I wish that we did, but I have my main meal after I finished working. So after the shows this evening, I don't eat until about 10 o'clock tonight, which is obviously not that good. So I eat light, but at the same time, it is the main meal. So I'm learning something from the fact that the tradition is eating your main meal, your bigger meal in the lunchtime and during the day. Maybe I might take some stock on that and change the way that I eat. So looking at family in your family and community, is there a specific cold weather dish that brings people together?
Well, actually, they pretty much eat pasta. There's a lot of pasta because pasta has a lot of carbohydrates, so they like pasta. And spaghetti sauce is something that actually is very healthy because there's so much meat, there's so much vegetables, the whole thing. So lots of sauce, lots of spaghetti sauce, not as much pasta, but the sauce as such is so healthy and so hearty that it's very good. So I would say that it's not an Italian thing here in Canada. It is pretty much something that it has been adopted for so long that it's just normal now here. It's people eat pasta. There are many people that eat pizza, um, but pizza is not that healthy because of the crust. But that is the way it is. And there's meat pie. They call it, in French, they call it tourtière. And it's kind of a meat pie, which is, it's pretty good actually. During the holidays, pretty much every mother does meat pie. Pretty much every mother does meat pie. It's a tradition. So we eat meat pie and turkey. Turkey is anytime. We eat turkey at any time. It's not really only on New Year's Eve or it's not only on Thanksgiving Day. We eat a lot of turkey also because turkey actually is close to chicken. So we like turkey. We do like turkey.
I love that. And, just thinking about your share in terms of the pasta dish in England, we tend to go for curries. So that brings people together when people go for curries or somebody cooks a curry or a chili. So again, it's a big pot of something. And having a curry for a party or a gathering, it's much more entertaining, and it brings more people together in terms of a big pot where you can go and have second or third helpings. And the chili pot is the same thing. When my mum used to do a chili con carne, that would be so warming and just delicious because it was always made in a big pot. We knew when the big pot was coming out that it would be a curry or a chili. But in retrospect of the fact that we have adopted the curry from India, and where I was brought up in Birmingham, that was the home of what they call the balti dish, which is a small dish with with two little handles, that became very Britishized, and it was the British Indian curry. And when I went to London to live, they were talking about Balti, but they only put it in the dish and didn't realize it was actually a very different dish. It was a much lighter curry, more of a gravy than a very thick curry. But that is something, when you go for a curry, that's very warming, and it brings people together, and very much a tradition. And certainly on Christmas Eve, my mum took us out for a balti to celebrate Christmas so that we didn't have to cook. And that was just wonderful, because it was something that was warming, that was hearty, and in a big dish. But definitely tradition in England is the curry, or in Birmingham, particularly where I grew up, it's the balti. So do you have any thoughts on what I've shared, Reverend Lydia, in terms of curries and the fact that it's not our traditional food, and yet we've adopted it?
Well, actually, we do like chili also, and we have these bowls also. They're made out of stone, so we do have those bowls also. And I love chili. I just love chili. So, and as the stronger it is, the better it is for me. I really love it. So I see that it looks a lot like what goes on in England when it comes to eating, because the breakfast seems similar. Yes, there's a difference when it comes to the timing, but it is pretty much the same when it comes to what we both eat. It's pretty much the same. So I think it has to do with the fact that, here people were originally from England or from France. So I think it has to do with this. We are pretty much Quakers, so that is pretty much why we have such similarities when it comes to food.
I didn't realize that Canadians were mainly Quakers. That's so interesting, because when I was a child and grew up in Birmingham, we had an area, a district called, it was a Quaker district. And something really amazing about that area, all the houses were amazing. You couldn't buy a house in the Quaker area. You could only rent them. And there was huge properties. And there was no shops or bars or pubs or anything like that. It was very pure, and all the greenery was there. It was a very sought after and desired area, but you couldn't buy a property in the Quaker area. And just thinking about it, the chocolate factory Cadbury's was in the same area. It's called Bournville. And it was, I don't know whether Cadbury's was a Quaker company. That's something I'm going to look into. But it was quite extraordinary that this incredible family-owned company was in the middle of Quaker district, Quaker area. And it was always just so lovely to go there. So I'm going to look that up. I'm going to find out whether the Cadbury's original company had a Quaker background. But yes, that's fascinating. I didn't realize that. And that's something new for me in terms of learning about the Canadians. And I have actually heard tell that the Canadians, and I do have to be careful because we've got Dr. Jacqueline, who's American, in the background doing all the whizzy effects, I've heard tell that the Canadians are known as the polite, they're very similar to British, and they're known as the polite Americans because they have a lot of politeness. And so I've spoken to many Canadians that don't like to be called American because they feel that there's quite a difference in the culture. What do you think about that? Do you have any comments to make about the fact that Canadians don't like to be called American and they feel that they're very different in their culture?
Well, what I think about that is it has nothing to do with being American or being Canadian. It has to do with the person. So I think that I know tons of Americans that are extremely polite, And I know tons of Canadians that are extremely impolite. So it is true that in Canada we are known to be extremely polite. But at a point, saying that Americans are less polite than Canadians, it's such a generality. I think the reputation is maybe far-fetched because it has to do with where people come from, their background, everything like this. Because after all, there are neighbors and we help one another and we are actually good neighbors. So we do help one another. And yes, we do not like to be talked to as if we were Americans for one reason, for political reasons, because our security is at risk. Because being American is more dangerous when you travel the world than being Canadian. Being Canadian, well, we're not at war with anyone. So that is the issue. So we go in the world being like peacekeepers, while the Americans actually are seen as the ones that are at war with everyone, which is not true, which is absolutely not true. So that is misjudging the Americans, I will say, because the Americans are great people and the Canadians are great people and we get along fine. And it
Fascinating
has nothing
insight.
to do it has nothing to do with being American or Canadian. It has to do with how you're raised.
Thank you, Reverend Lydia, and a fascinating insight. I've just heard tell that so the Canadians are much more British-like than the Americans. I've not heard that perspective from a Canadian. I just know that I've upset a few people that are Canadian, calling them American, and I wondered what was behind it. So thank you for that insight, which is really good to have that insight in terms of where you both sit around the table in the bigger arena rather than it being individuals. This is how we go into stereotyping and stereotypical. The British person is known to be always moaning and complaining. We're not always moaning and complaining. It's just the stereotype that has been portrayed internationally. And that brings to mind something that I was part of an organization for quite a long time, a number of decades, called Junior Chamber. And we used to do twinnings. We were twinned with different countries. And I was living in Birmingham at the time. And I went to a twinning in Hungary. And one of their big traditions is goulash. And we had, because it was very hot when we went over there, and we had a little competition. It was like we were in teams, and we had to guess, get the questions right, and then we gained a new ingredient for our goulash. And so it was like sort of a cooking competition, but answering the questions. And if we didn't get the question right, we would lose points, but we would get the ingredient before we didn't. We would run out of needing it. So we got the ingredients, whether we made the answers right or not. But it was the fun of who would get the goulash cooked and who was the tastiest goulash at the end of it. And I must admit, that was quite fun to do. And from my experience of cooking the goulash with this team, and it was a big pot that we all did, so we had lots of goulash left, we found that there was a lot of camaraderie around cooking, and it felt like cooking a British stew with a difference. It felt like there was much more flavors and seasonings and much more intricacy. But that's what it felt like to me. Do you have any thoughts about what I've just shared in terms of cooking with a team and bringing something to life. Because for them, the Hungarians, the goulash was their tradition, and it was something that they're very proud of.
Well, I never had goulash in my life, and I think it's really, really interesting to do such a contest. It's really fun. Cooking as a team, it's really fun. We used to do that in our school. I was in an Anglican school, and we used to do all kinds of team up work. And that is pretty much what we were doing. So we were like the boys against the girls, or, the two sixth grades against one another. And we would team up to cook. So it was really fun. And we would invite friends from the other school for a meal, and it was fun. And we were kids, and we would still try to cook something, and we were not always good, but we had good teachers to help us, and we would actually make sure that we did not burn ourselves. So teamwork when it comes to cooking and working as a team, it is really fun. And when you work in, let us say you work in a church basement and you are doing a fundraising, isn't it ever fun to be a really huge group and to make a luncheon? You're a great team, you make a luncheon, you make a charity, and at the same time, you do something fun. Everyone enjoys one another, and you do it for the good of the group and for the community. So I think that making food and actually helping at the same time is a very good thing. So, and we have fun. We have a lot of fun.
Thank you, Reverend Lydia. Something has come to mind in terms of our sharing, and we are at the back end. We're almost finished. We're almost at the end of our show. Hasn't it gone quickly? Yes. Something that's really resonating with me is that we're both going back to memories from our childhood. We're both and smiling and reminiscing about our childhood and what we ate and what was fun and what was brought to the party. And my feeling is that in thinking about foods, it brings us back to the family. It brings us back to what we started off being fed as a child and how we change. I mean, for me, when I was a child, that Sunday was tradition to have a Sunday roast. And it was a big occasion. It was a big roasted chicken. And we would all sit around the table, and it would be a family thing. And that was at lunchtime. So that was our biggest meal at lunchtime. And it was a big, gathering of the family on Sunday. And when I moved away, I stopped having Sunday roast on a Sunday because I moved away from tradition. So I felt that I wanted to reflect that it's really brought up in this show a lot of our childhood memories. And I think that, sort of back then when we were children, it was very much about keeping warm because we didn't have a lot of choice then, and very much in terms of the family gatherings and cooking the big pots. So it's just made me think about, the fact that we're looking at our childhood and smiling about the foods that we would eat and the gatherings. So have you got any final thoughts that you want to share before we end the show?
Well, the thought that I have is I was thinking about, the fact that Canadians and British are pretty much similar. Yes, we are similar because we are we have a lot of reservation. We are both countries. We tend to keep ourselves to ourselves. So the thing is that we don't express ourselves as much. So we are a little less, we're very open-minded, but at the same time, we do not express ourselves as much. when it comes to something, we will just look at the situation and just judge, do I talk or not? So that is pretty much the way we are as Canadians and British. We will wonder, will I talk about it or not? And we pretty much have been raised in church, in a church background, which actually says, if it does not change your life, just keep it to yourself. So I think the difference between, yes, being American and being Canadian and being British, it has to do with how we are raised, which is, pretty much in church backgrounds. Because when it comes to the American citizens, they come from everywhere. They come from everywhere. They call it the United States. That is why, there's such diversity, and that is why it's such a great country. There's diversity. So that is why we are so different, because our diversity is not as much as the United States.
Thank you, Reverend Lydia. Some great shares there, some great insights. Thank you very much. And we are at the end of our show. Cold weather comforts, traditional dishes that warm the soul, part 1. Before we close out, Reverend Lydia, please do share how people can reach you, the best way that people can contact you.
Okay, people can contact me at 1-514-582-6882, or they can go on Instagram at Diva Divine Mother _. I always answer, or write to me at greatdivinemother@gmail.com. They can also buy my books on Amazon. I wrote 111 Reflections for Thy Earth Odyssey. I wrote tomes 1 and 2. Tome 3 is about to be available. So that is how they can write to me. And they can write to me also on my website, lydiafougere.com. So thank you very much for having me. And thank you for everyone for viewing.
Thank you, Reverend Lydia. And for me, you can reach me on nomorestress@live.co.uk, or reach out and call if you're international, +44. If you're local, 07523 120 189. Follow me on LinkedIn, on my social media, and on Facebook. I answer to messages and to emails, or reach out on Messenger, and we can do, if you would like a consultation, either audio or video. And I look forward to helping you bust your stress. I also work with corporates, and I provide talks, educational talks in their lunch times, and I call it Lunch and Learn. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We've had a blast. I'm sure that we could go on with this topic. It's been most interesting. I've learned a lot about the Canadian culture and their traditional eating. And we will be back for A Woman's Prerogative Part 2 at 9 p.m. GMT time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern time, for A Woman's Prerogative Part 2. Cold Weather Comforts, Traditional Dishes That Warm the Soul, Part 2. Before we move over to our sponsors, please do join our VIP exclusive community and become an exclusive VIP community member. You'll get first access to our newest videos and photographs of the royal family and insights to the royal family. It's live streamed on YouTube and USA Global TV and Radio. Thank you very much, Reverend Lydia. It's been an amazing show. I've really enjoyed learning so much about how the Canadians eat, and so much about how we can warm ourselves in winter. I look forward to seeing you for A Woman's Prerogative Part 2, which is at 9 p.m. GMT time. Many thanks, and over now to our sponsors.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, Red O'Loughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street stress expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Caroline Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Have you ever felt unheard? Like your words float into a void, leaving you invisible and disconnected? How about feeling judged, when assumptions overshadow your truth, leaving you misunderstood and defensive? And then there's that moment when someone offers solutions you never asked for, dismissing your feelings and leaving you more frustrated than before. It doesn't have to be this way. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the listening mentor, understands. She's here to help you reclaim your voice, build stronger connections, and create meaningful conversations that inspire understanding and mutual respect. Through her groundbreaking books, online and in-person courses, and interactive workshops, you'll learn how to navigate life's most challenging interactions. Discover the power of elevated listening and transform how you communicate. Master setting boundaries and asking permission to protect your peace. Learn to recognize and release judgment, fostering empathy and true connection. Dr. Kerbeck also offers personalized coaching, one-on-one or group sessions designed to fit your unique needs. Whether in person or virtually on StreamYard, her guidance will empower you to thrive. You don't have to struggle alone. The path to deeper connections and better relationships start here. Visit drjacqueline.com or usaglobaltv.com. Join a global community of empowered listeners and transform your life, one meaningful conversation at a time. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor. Start your journey today. In a world full of noise, misunderstandings, and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations.
We face daily cyber risks, spending over 7 hours of screen time, including 4.5 hours on mobile phones. This convenience comes with significant dangers, with cybercrime costs predicted to exceed $10.5 trillion by 2025. In 2023 alone, seniors lost over $3.4 billion to cybercrime. Our goal is to make social engineering concepts of cybersecurity easier to understand. We work with business teams, senior living facilities, investment companies, and educational institutions, both individually and in groups. We offer real-life examples to help you recognize and prevent attacks, with sessions available both in person, in selected regions, and remotely. Schedule your training session, or to learn more, contact us today. Call us at 847-845-9360. Email us at info@cybersecurityeasy.com. Protect your team and family with cybersecurity easy.com.